The Bengals hit the road. They head to Pittsburgh on Sunday. Let's get the latest on the Steelers in our weekly crossover. It's Locked On Bengals and Locked On Steelers.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. He's James Rapien of Locked On Bengals, and it's Crossover Thursday time. We're breaking things down. Steelers, Bengals, 4:25 at Acrisure Stadium here in Pittsburgh, the rematch from the Week 1 game. We're going to get into all the matchups and all the talk in just a minute here. We thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen every day, whether you're a Steelers or a Bengals fan. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, which is fun and easy to play. It's daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win up to 10 times your money on any entry, and it literally takes them less than 60 seconds to play. It's just that easy. We love PrizePicks, and we know that you will too. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On at PrizePicks.com or the PrizePicks app. James, how you doing, my man?
Doing well. I'm excited. I'm excited to go to Pittsburgh. I'm excited to try a couple restaurants, Chris, that you recommended last year that were really good. So I'm not going to hit them up again. Maybe get some new recs. But no, I'm excited. I'm refreshed after the bye. And here we go, AFC North football. What's better than that?
Exactly. We're right back in action there, and I do got some recommendations. You could ask Ross. I just took him to a few places over the weekend from Locked On Saints, so that was a good time. But let's get into the top stories here. I want you to lead with what's going on in Cincinnati right now. I think both teams have dealt with some injury stuff this year, and that's kind of hindered their chances to kind of just jump out the gate.
No doubt. I mean, injuries are part of it. No Jamar Chase this week. DJ Reader is going to come back after being out since week 3 with an MCL injury. Mike Hilton missed a game after undergoing finger surgery, but he's going to play on Sunday as well against his former team. So plenty of storylines. But the top one here in Cincinnati, to me, is pretty simple. One, you're 5-4, and you're the defending AFC champions. And if you're going to really make a true playoff run, looking at this 8-game stretch, you have to beat the Steelers. 2, how many playoff teams start 0-4 in the division? Unless you're in the NFC South, I think it's pretty impossible. So the fact that the Bengals are 0-3 in the division, they've lost to the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns. Well, they play each of those teams again, and they need to find a way to get revenge and get to 1-1 against Pittsburgh. And it's obviously much tougher this time around because you have to go to Pittsburgh. But that's the reality they face, given where they're at and given how the first 9 weeks have gone for them. 5-4, 0-3 in the division. I didn't have them there, but that's where they are. So going to Pittsburgh, getting a win, to me, and you can say it's a must win as much as it's a must win.
I agree.
Falling to 0-4 in the division, I'm sure someone could do the research and say, oh, well, this team has done it or this team has done it. The Bengals aren't going to do it if they fall to 0-4 in the division. So Sunday is crucial for their success. Not just this week, but as the season is concerned, getting to 6-4 and finally getting a win in the AFC North.
And especially when you look at the Ravens and this AFC, it's packed right now. The Bengals are at 5-4. The Ravens are a game ahead. They're 2-0. They've already beaten the Bengals once. If you fall to 0-4, I mean, you're then basically hoping that that you win your game against the Ravens, and that the Ravens lose all of the rest of their division games, and that you catch them, and you have a chance to be 2 games down if you lose and they win their next game. So I think you're exactly right. And then as it stands right now, if the playoffs were to start today, crazy enough, the Bengals wouldn't be in it with a 5-4 record because there's so many 6-3 teams. You got the Titans, the Ravens, the Jets, the Bills, the Patriots at 5-4. I guess somehow they have a tiebreaker. That's weird. But and then you still got the Chargers at 5-4 and the Bengals at 5-4 there to round out the last 2 teams that have winning records in the AFC. So I'm right with you. That's a big importance for the Steelers right now. It's the potential return of Minkah Fitzpatrick because Minkah Fitzpatrick, for those who missed what happened, everything looked fine and ready to go for the Steelers against the Saints. They were getting back TJ Watt. There was excitement in the air. And then all of a sudden, Minkah Fitzpatrick left the practice field like right at the end of practice. And everyone was like, oh, okay, that's just probably nothing. And then a tweet goes out from Adam Schefter. He has appendicitis. He's not playing tomorrow. And everyone, I mean, literally everyone was like, what? Like DeMonte KZ, who also came off of injury reserve this past week, was like, we practiced all week with him. And then like the day of the game, or the last day of practice, we left the practice field. Everything was fun. He said he got home, got a call from his cousin, said Minkah's not playing. He was like, Minkah's not playing? What you mean? I was just with him. And like, it was that sudden to the Steelers. So with appendicitis and the concerns there was a lot of concerns that he might be out for like 3 weeks. But Mike Tomlin comes in on Tuesday in his press conference, says, hey, he's trending very positive. Said he was already in the Steelers facility very early that morning, lifting weights, running around. And if that is true, it's very possible that Mike Tomlin's pulling people's leg because Minkah Fitzpatrick did not practice on Wednesday officially. But if that is true, it would be the first time that we've seen the Steelers defense as close to it's been designed since the start of the year. All through training camp, we saw lots of 3 safety packages with KZ, Terrell Edmunds, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, and all 3 of them. And then KZ gets hurt in the preseason, and it's like, well, scrap all of those packages that you put together. Then TJ Watt gets hurt in the opener, like, well, got to find a way to create pressure without the defensive player of the year. And the Steelers defense, which was supposed to be the side of the football that controlled games for the Steelers, allowed the offense to kind of figure itself out, and in the process not cost teams games. That fell to the wayside. That led to their 3-6 start this year with the defense giving up a lot more points than people expected. But now Sunday is the chance for the Steelers to get back Minkah Fitzpatrick while TJ Watt's back and healthy, while DeMonte KZ's healthy, and you got Larry Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, who leads the team right now with 8 sacks, and a defense that has been getting sharper over the weeks, even when they've been missing as many as 3 cornerbacks and Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt, them finding ways to come together. I think it's just this group is ecstatic to finally show like, hey, this is what we're like when we can be at full strength.
Yeah, Joe Burrow joked about Minkah on Wednesday, and he said, hey, any advice coming off of the appendectomy, which obviously Burrow went through. He was like, take another week. Take another week. That would be my advice to Minkah, which in typical Burrow fashion, that's, obviously got a laugh from everyone. And, I thought it was worth sharing there. Look, this defense obviously played well against Burrow, and in 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers week 1. And I think that's one of the many matchups we should dive into, Chris, because man, these AFC North games, they're a grind always. Yeah. The second time around, after you've seen the teams play each other and you have film now, it's going to be that much more interesting. So we'll get into key matchups that are going to decide this game coming up next.
And we will. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our sponsor, because today's episode is brought to you by BlueNile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're just celebrating a milestone moment, you can find jewelry as unique as her with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. BlueNile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. BlueNile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring, each ring being one of a kind. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? BlueNile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry at BlueNile.com. And Locked On listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings, so be sure to use that promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging and won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece by going to BlueNile.com today. We also have a special word from our friends at Tommy John. James, tell them what Tommy John's got to tell these guys.
Well, if you're getting stuck in Black Friday crowds, you're super uncomfortable. But shopping Tommy John's Black Friday sale from your couch, that's super duper comfortable. That's right, Chris. I said super duper, because when you give your loved ones Tommy John, they're that much more comfortable, so they can do everything better. You shop Tommy John's Black Friday sale right now. You don't have to wait for Black Friday. You shop it right now with brand new Tommy John underwear, loungewear, and pajamas. Over 18 million pairs are sold. That's about half of what Joe Burrow is going to make, but that's still a heck of a lot of underwear sold. So check them out right now. Tommy John's Black Friday sale going on right now, and get 30% off site-wide at TommyJohn.com/lockedon. I know where I'm going right after this show, Chris. TommyJohn.com/lockedon, where you'll get 30% off everything. TommyJohn.com/lockedon. See site for details.
And hey, when we do back-to-back ad reads, we get to keep it rolling. No need for more YouTube ads or audio ads. We just keep it going here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Crossover Thursday, Steelers, Bengals, Chris, James. We're breaking it down here. All right, matchup time, baby. This is going to be interesting because now we have the guys that Sean McCoy says is the same people. He says that Joe Burrow is Kenny Pickett. Well, Kenny Pickett has not looked like Joe Burrow in his first several starts. He had several interceptions. But I will say, as a person who covered Kenny Pickett in college, this was along the lines of I was expecting some struggles. I was just expecting more of the defense being able to kind of hold up their end of the deal on his first few starts. But like we said, injuries and concerns, I think, have put more on Kenny Pickett to succeed. But now you have a situation where these two guys finally get to go head-to-head. Of course, it was Mitch Trubisky in the first outing. And it's been interesting to see Kenny Pickett take on the week-to-week challenges. He still hasn't looked sharp in any of the games, but last week was the first time that I saw him not try to do too much in the wrong moments, which is a step in the right direction. But one thing that I see getting after Kenny Pickett every week is defenses know, hey, we're going to just keep flopping our safety. We're just going to make sure that our pre-snap reads, our pre-snap look is not going to be what you get once we snap the ball. The Saints all game long were slipping from one high to two high to three deep to quarters to they're just moving all over the place to kind of slow him down. And I know with the Bengals safeties that they got back there, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, those guys know how to work together very well. I think that their looks and how they try to disguise the back end of the defense and the underneath looks of the defense, that's going to be a huge matchup for the Steelers in this game as far as just getting the offense going. And, as I can imagine, whether or not Minkah Fitzpatrick plays, that's going to be a big part of Joe Burrow's matchup as well.
No doubt. I mean, you mentioned it. LaShawn McCoy might be right. I mean, at least when you look at Kenny Pickett's debut with 3 picks, Joe Burrow's season opener, 4 picks. So it was pretty close together. No, I say that jokingly, of course. Look, is Kenny Pickett Burrow? I'm not sure. Here's what I do know is Burrow's played much better since that game and really since the first couple of weeks of the season. This Bengals offense has found a way to get going. Now, has there been some bumps in the road? No doubt. Monday night against the Browns was as ugly as week 1 was. And, they didn't counter punch and find a way to recover. And it was just a beatdown. But most of the time this year, and even when they were really struggling to find their way on offense, they were able to counter punch and stay in games. And I do think that they found something here and that this offensive line has played better in recent weeks. And to me, that's the storyline. When you talk about Burrow, I think Burrow's going to play well. Does TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, specifically TJ Watt, though, because the edge rusher, I mean, he was just a nightmare week 1. Mm-hmm. Can these tackles hold up? Can this pass protection hold up? Can this offensive line open up holes for Joe Mixon like they did against Carolina a few weeks back? That's the part of it where you find ways, whether it's running the ball or just blocking well and containing TJ Watt, to not let him wreck the game. Because if that happens and Watt isn't wrecking the game, I'm confident Burrow's going to find the open man. And I'm confident he's going to make enough plays to keep this offense going. And so that's really what it comes down to. The week 1 stuff, that was an outlier. And if Minkah plays, that's great. Obviously, he's a great player, and that's going to help the Steelers defense. On the flip side, I think that this comes down to what the Bengals do offensively. Do they allow TJ Watt to beat them? Do they make sure that Cam Hayward doesn't have a sack on the first play from scrimmage, which, the interior of this line has played much better. So we'll see. And that's a storyline, not just in a matchup, not just for this week, but moving forward. Can this offensive line get the ground game going and make sure that Burrow's upright?
Well, that was where I was going with my next part of this matchup talk was how better is this offensive line right now? Because they got beat up, and it wasn't just TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith had 3 sacks, and in 2 games where TJ Watt has played, he had 3 sacks in week 1. He had 2.5 sacks 2 sacks last week. They took a half off him after the fact. But he's been able to get after guys. He's been a sack man, the leading sack man for the Steelers in the place of TJ Watt. And now they're also Miles Jack is going to be coming off arrest. The fact that he wasn't on the injury report for the Steelers is a good sign because he didn't get to play in that last game, even though he dressed. You got Devin Bush, you got those guys. I truly think with their secondary alignment, they're going to trust their secondary to do a lot more, and they're going to be telling their guys up front to pin their ears back. What's different about this offensive line? How have they come together, and what have you seen as far as their growth as a unit to show that they are a lot better than when they were in week one?
Well, the communication is certainly much better. And, when you have 4 new starters and they don't play in the preseason, and injuries had as much to do with that as anything, then there's going to be some growing pains. And I think they've been better. I mean, Alex Kappa has been their best offensive lineman, the right guard. Ted Karras has been such a leader at center for them. And Cordell Volson, who was the big question mark going into this first matchup between the Bengals and Steelers, has been solid as a rookie, a 4th rounder starting at left guard. So really that interior, you feel pretty good about. Now, is Cam Hayward a freak and is it going to be tough? Absolutely. But the question here, Chris, will these tackles hold up? La'el Collins against TJ Watt, right? He had some good reps against Watt, but Watt certainly won his fair share too week one. But you're right. The matchup that you were not expecting, at least I was not expecting, to just be so one-sided was Alex Highsmith and what he was able to do against Jonah Williams. And that was kind of foreshadowing. Jonah Williams is one of the bigger disappointments on the Bengals through 9 games. And the Bengals, they picked up his 5th-year option. He's the former 11th overall pick. He did play through a knee issue earlier in the year. So is he closer to 100% now? Can he perform at a much higher level against a guy in Highsmith who no doubt is a talented pass rusher? But if you're a 1st-round pick and your 5th-year option is picked up, which is a guaranteed contract next year, you're expected to slow that guy down. And he couldn't do it week one. It's a huge, huge matchup this week in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Alex Highsmith has gotten sharper each week. Last week, you can see he's combining his moves now. He's been able to build off of them, spins to the inside, rips to the outside. He's finding ways to win, and he's using each other. He's setting each move up with other moves that he's doing throughout a game. He's truly looking interested. I'm also interested. My last thing on a matchups tip that I want to hear from you, James, is where is the Bengals defense in stopping the run? Because the Steelers, they haven't been able to run the ball much this year, but last week there was a serious commitment to 12 personnel packages. You saw them being willing to use Pat Freiermuth and Zach Gentry as tight end duos to help set the tone for the run game and get things going. They had over 200 yards rushing for the first time, God knows when, with this Steelers offense, and that was kind of what allowed for the offense to breathe a little bit last Sunday. Where's the Bengals run defense right now?
Well, it's getting a huge boost with DJ Reader coming back. They look vulnerable at times without him. And guys like J2FLA on the inside stepped up. Zach Carter, rookie from Florida, stepped up. BJ Hill was asked to do more. But you get a guy back like Reader, and I fully expect them now to be able to you never want to say shut down the run against any AFC North team, but slow that down and keep Najee Harris in check, keep Jaylen Warren in check. And that kind of has to be the expectation, because the last thing you want is to give Kenny Pickett, a crutch essentially in letting that run game get going. So that's probably, outside of forcing turnovers, number one on Lou Anarumo's must-do list this week. And so getting Reader back is huge. I'll ask you the same thing, because the Bengals, for the first time really this season, were able to consistently run the ball. And they've had a couple good running games, but Joe Mixon's 5-touchdown performance, a week and a half ago, I think they're going to try to, and that's one way to neutralize TJ Watt. That's one way to take away Highsmith in that pass rush. How are the Steelers, how have they been against the run? And is there any concern about this Bengals rushing attack that's been bad for most of the year, but is trending upward?
Well, I'll say there were some times this year where that run defense was struggling. They weren't doing enough, and the Steelers weren't happy about it. But I think the biggest thing has been health. There's been weeks where Larry Ogunjobi hasn't played. There's been weeks where their linebackers were banged up. There have been weeks where they were starting to put into Marvin Leal, and then he had to go on injured reserve, and he just started practicing again. I don't expect him to play this week, but they've been getting guys. But they've also had some really good performances, like last week when they just completely destroyed Alvin Kamara. They did not let him get going, and now the Steelers ranked 6th in rushing defense this year, which a lot of people, when they ranked dead last year for the first time since like 1944, I'd say they're seeing a boost there. And with TJ Watt back, I think this is going to come down a lot of this game. And I said this with the last game too. A lot of this game is going to come down to, can the Bengals offensive line do enough to neutralize the Steelers' defensive front and get Joe Mixon some one-on-ones against Devin Bush and Miles Jack in the hole. Because if the Steelers take away Joe Mixon, I think it makes it much easier to handle Joe Burrow. But if Joe Mixon is able to average 5-6 runs per carry or yards per carry, if he's able to get 100, 120, 130 yards in this game, it's going to make things easier for Burrow. It's going to stop the Steelers' pass defense from being as aggressive as it likes to be. And then that's where the problems start to leak out when the Steelers' defense isn't at its best. So I think this could be a big crux of this game, and where how this shapes out is if the Bengals find a way to run the ball, I think that they will win the game. But if the Steelers find a way to stop the run, I like their chances just as much as I liked them when they played in week one. So I think that is going to be a big part of this game.
Who's going to win? It's time to give our predictions, and we'll do that next right here on Locked On Bengals, Locked On Steelers, a Week 11 crossover. But first, a word from BetOnline, because BetOnline is your number one source for all things sports betting, info, stats, and analysis. If you're trying to wager on this huge AFC North matchup, you can do that. If you're looking for prop bets where it's the Joe Burrow over/under yards, maybe you want to go TJ Watt sacks, you can do all of that. NBA, I'm a big NBA fan. You can do that. College football, Chris is covering the Pittsburgh Panthers. Well, you can wager on that as well. So it's all in one spot. I've used BetOnline, and you should too. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
And wrapping things up here on Crossover Thursday, it's Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bengals. We're breaking things down. It's time to go to predictions. And I always like to do predictions in a way that allows us to talk about the course of the game, not just the end of the game. Because I always like to ask people, what do they think is the turning point? Like, what is the big X factor to the game that turns it into the favor of the team that you think is going to win? And when is that going to happen? Because I think those are important to tell with predictions, because we can all just name scores. Anyone can slap some numbers on a board. But what's the matchup that you think gets the team going? I'll let you go first, James. You picked the Bengals to win last time. Do you pick them to win this game? And if so, what is that turning point of the game to get you the final score that you're thinking?
56-21. No, I'm just kidding. I'll hold off on a score for just a second.
Okay.
Look, to me, I think game script is so huge. And the reason week one went awry, obviously you could point to the turnovers, but the Bengals get down early and they feel the need to pass. They have to throw drop back. Well, guess what you don't want to do against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith when Alex Highsmith is torching Jonah Williams? Drop back. So to me, especially on the road, the last thing you want to do is get off to a slow start where Kenny Pickett finds George Pickens for a 62-yard touchdown, or Najee Harris gets going and they're able to drive downfield and punch it in, or you have a turnover like you had in week one, the first one that just set everything up and really set you downhill. So to me, game script is huge, especially on the road, especially against a young quarterback. And so can this Bengals team get off to a lead early? I could say it every week, and I've said it a lot, because the Bengals this year, in games they've gotten off to a quick start, it goes rosy, and it goes exactly how you're expecting it to, and usually they win. They start slow. Well, then that's a lot of the games that they've lost. So it's not that simple, and you have to finish and all of those things. But to me, on the road, it's going to be a wild crowd. There's plenty of hostility between these two teams still, and it is a rivalry. So I think getting off to a quick start is going to be huge. The matchups we talked about matters a ton. And ultimately, Joe Burrow is playing much, much better in recent weeks. He's not the Burrow we saw in week one, and I'm not going to dismiss it because he did not play well. That was the worst game of his career. It's fair to say. He's not going to have 4 picks. The fumble, that was on Jonah too, by the way. Am I banking on Jonah being better? I do think he'll be much better than he was in week one, where he just got beat. And so to me, they'll be able to get the ground game going a bit. And going into the year, Chris, even though I'm about to pick the Bengals, I had the Bengals splitting with the Steelers. I thought it would be flipped. And the Steelers would lose week one. The Bengals would handle business at Paycor Stadium and then lose in Pittsburgh. Turns out I was wrong. I think it's going to be flipped this way, where the Bengals lost week one and they get it done this week against Kenny Pickett and company. You want me to give you a score, or do you want to go ahead first?
No, give me a score first.
I think 26. 26-17, 26-20, something in that range is how I'm feeling. Where it's close, you're talking about 4 field goals for Evan McPherson, only 2 touchdowns for the Bengals offense, multiple field goals for the Steelers and a couple touchdowns. Where it's close the whole game, but the Bengals, they find a way to win.
You guys still got Cal Automitis over there?
Yeah.
How's he treating y'all?
He is one of the nicest dudes, man. He came on my YouTube channel with Elise Jesse last week and talked with her for like 20 minutes about all sorts of stuff. He is the nicest dude, always has a smile on his face, really soft spoken. And I'm happy he's part of the Bengals because he's, I don't talk to him much, but he's certainly
a long snapper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's a really good dude.
Yeah, he's super good. I mean, listen, we had a lot of fun talking to him whenever he did the at Pitt when the reason that's why I know him, for those who didn't pick up why I was asking that question, but he was the Pitt long snapper for many years. At the end of every year, he would do his he would cut all of his hair because he grows his hair out every year. Yep. And he cuts his hair and he sells it. It's like part of a charity thing, and he does a great job. He raises money for kids all the time, and he is very kind-hearted. And I was just curious, just asking that because I love Cal, and we always talk about like, man, that was one of the nicest guys to come through the locker room. So very cool to hear that he's doing well with the Bengals. But all right, my turn to get into the predictions. Now, I say this, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this like the MCU. We're gonna do multiverses here because there's one multiverse, there's one universe where the Steelers don't get back Minkah Fitzpatrick, and in that universe, I truly think the Steelers they put up a really good fight. But they need X factors in this game. And that's what won them the last game. Minkah Fitzpatrick jumping the pass and taking it back for a touchdown. Alex Highsmith breaking things open. The Steelers secondary feeding off of each other. And when you saw when their X factor guys set the tone, Cam Hayward getting the sack, Minkah Fitzpatrick getting an interception, the role players started to get into it. Cam Sutton had an heck. Kellen Witherspoon had an interception, and that guy's been getting torched ever since. Like, that is what needs to happen for the Steelers. But if there's no Minkah Fitzpatrick in this game, I can't see them winning this game. That's my alternate universe where if it goes there, if he's not, because I'm not saying he's definitely going to play. I still personally think it's 50-50 because I know Mike Tomlin. I know how head coaches work. Pat Narduzzi, Pitt football's head coach, does the same thing. They like to feed you gas. They like to light you up. It's like, oh, here's he might be, he's looking good, and then like on the official injury report they have to say what it is and make it in practice on Wednesday. So I'm like, they want
the Bengals to prepare for him.
Exactly.
Make Burrow think about Minkah even if he's not playing.
Right, and that's why I don't totally buy that maybe he's not. He said very positive during that Tuesday press conference, and I can't tell you how many times I've been fed something like that from a head coach, and I've been like, I don't believe you. I got to find someone else that tell him, like a trainer or a source or something. So the alternate universe where Minkah doesn't play, I say the Bengals win because they're able to connect with some big plays. You still got T. Higgins. You still got Tyler Boyd. You still have Joe Burrow. And I don't think Joe Mixon breaks loose too much, but he does just enough, and they hit on a couple shot plays. The Bengals defense keeps Kenny Pickett in check, keeps Najee Harris in check, and that allows the Bengals to win 24-20, similar to a score that what you were giving. But in the multiverse universe, where the variant Minkah Fitzpatrick comes onto the field and he's hyped up and he's angry, he's ready to play. I'm telling you, like when I was interviewing DeMonte KZ and Minkah Fitzpatrick was like talking to like a trainer on the side, and I couldn't pick up every word they're saying, but it looked like Minkah was like, yeah, I was fine, I'm good, like leave me alone, like I'm good. This guy is wanting to play. But that's also who Minkah is. The Steelers may protect him and all because at the same time, like Minkah Fitzpatrick is more than just a short-term say. He's here for the long haul. They paid him the big deal to stay here for several years. He's 25. You want him to last the long haul. So they don't want to risk anything crazy there. But it's appendicitis. If he's feeling good and they're going to play, I give the Steelers just as much of a chance as I gave them in week 1. I say it comes down in a similar fashion. 23-20, Steelers finding a way to win late in the game. I still think this is a game where both teams are in it to the very end. But I think that the thing is that the Steelers' run defense has gotten better. Devin Bush and Miles Jack are playing very well. And in this universe where Minkah Fitzpatrick does play, I think that they key in on Joe Burrow a lot more because they know that Minkah, Terrell Edmonds, DeMonte KZ, they're playing well as the safeties. Cam Sutton's been a really good outside corner. Levi Wallace had a really good game last week. He's been playing solidly on the outside. He has an interception on Josh Allen this year, and now he had an interception on Andy Dalton last week. I think that is the key, is they need all those things to line up. They also need the offense to put up some points, but I think that we've started to see some things trend positively for Najee Harris, for Kenny Pickett, for George Pickens, who I think is getting better and better each week. They do just enough to eke things out. I think what happens is late in the third quarter, there's some key turnovers the Steelers start to get because their pass rush starts getting through. Joe Mixon ran 27 times last time they played in week 1. They kept him in check, held him to 3 yards a carry. I think it's a similar pace here when Joe Burrow gets a little desperate. That's where the Steelers defense makes plays, and it's just enough to put them over the top. I say 23-20 Steelers if Minkah Fitzpatrick does play, 24-20 Bengals if Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't.
7-point swing because of Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
BetOnline is laughing at you right now.
They can laugh on it. They was laughing at me when I picked the Steelers in week 1, baby. And
by the way, I thought of that at the end of the game. I'm like, I got to watch my language. Dang it, Chris was right, and he shouldn't have been right.
And listen,
he was so wrong. That was
I was so wrong. But what did I say in the week? I said it's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be dumb stuff. It's gonna be crazy things. And what happened? Your long snapper got hurt. You missed field goals, and then all of a sudden, exactly, they say chaos is gonna happen, and that's. I said those are the games that Mike Tomlin finds a way to win.
By the way, I said this after the game, and I still feel this way. And this includes the Steelers and all 32 NFL teams. If your long snapper gets hurt, you should be able to just promote one if you have him on the practice squad.
I feel the same thing.
I don't want a long snapper dictate, like in general, in any game.
Yeah.
Like the Bengals shouldn't win Sunday because the Steelers long snapper gets hurt. Like that's just wild.
There's always the legendary play where it was back in like the late 2000s when I forget who they were playing. It might have been the Bengals, but the Steelers lost their long snapper. James Harrison went to long snap and he long snapped it through the field goal post. Like he just like launched it and it was like, well, that's a safety and this is going to go. He's too
have
strong.
Have you seen his workouts? He's too strong, man.
Yeah, that guy still works out. It's ridiculous. But that being said, but that's why I picked it back then. I thought chaos is going to happen. I think this is a much more structured game. Again, if Minkah Fitzpatrick plays, I think it's not just him. It's how this defense plays when it's allowed to be together. Like, for example, TJ Watt wasn't a game wrecker last week for the Saints, but him being on the field got all the rest of the guys up front to play well. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick will have a similar effect on the rest of the Steelers defense if he's back this week. So we'll see how that plays out. James, thanks so much for doing Crossover Thursday with me. It's been a pleasure doing this show with you. Locked On Steelers, Locked On Bengals. Remember, y'all, you can check out both of these shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey. We're especially on YouTube. If you saw this on Locked On Bengals or Locked On Steelers, like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. We got your team every day, Monday through Friday, breaking things down, bonus content whenever we can deliver it to you. It's all coming out here right on both channels. From Chris Carter and James Rapien, thanks so much for checking out our episode. Check out both of our channels for our Friday episodes, getting you ready for the last step going into this game, and then our post-game analysis that will be coming right at you Sunday night. Thanks again for checking us out.